Hello and welcome to ModeOne's podcast, eDiscovery Mode. In this episode, Matt Rasmussen, CEO and founder of ModeOne, is joined by Rakesh Madhava, founder and CEO of Nextpoint, for a candid conversation on the state of the eDiscovery and legal tech industry. Together, they explore how modern legal teams are navigating increasingly complex data sources, why cloud-native and API-driven architectures are becoming table stakes, how AI is reshaping expectations across firms of all sizes, and what the next 12 months may hold for legal technology providers and their clients. This is a practical, forward-looking discussion from two founders who have built technology through multiple industry shifts and who see legal tech moving from the margins to the very center of legal operations. Let's get into it.
Awesome. Well, Rakesh, glad you could join me today. I know during our prep calls, we have a ton of stuff we can dive in here about, and just I'm super excited to kind of be diving into the state of eDiscovery and legal tech and what we're kind of seeing. And thanks so much for joining me today.
You bet. Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here. It's interesting times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll do our best to keep this under 10 minutes. Both of us like to talk a lot, but let's kind of dive in here. So, one of the things I took a note of that we were kind of talking about during our prep is just kind of setting the stage of what we're seeing in the market, last year and what we're thinking is coming this year, right? We've talked about that. We kind of thought that we were seeing like legal tech kind of going through like a fundamental shift last year. We're having a lot of people that are a lot of clients that are being focused on being more driven to scaling, building in cloud applications to be handling that workload and some of those real world kind of legal workflow challenges. Just would love to hear from you kind of what you were guys seeing last year, where you think some of those shifts are happening.
Yeah, it's been a little bit longer than I'd say a 3-year shift or a year shift, right? It's really kind of a 3-year process that we've been here in Nextpoint in terms of having to refactor and revamp our entire processing infrastructure, right? Because that's if we're going to talk kind of EDRM, after you get through collections, after you get through identification of collections, your next step is you got to process that data. You got to extract it and transform it. And around 3 years ago, I think we became aware of the need to move to a much more flexible architecture in order to account for really two significant changes. I think one was that data sizes just continue to grow. Moore's law is just seemingly showing no signs of hitting some sort of logical boundary. And so the data sizes continue to expand. I think in combination with that were two other components. One was just the explosion in file types, short message formats, increased use of video and images, GIFs, memes, emojis, like just wildly disparate types, right? Like when we first built our processing architecture, most of what we needed to do was process PSTs. Like that was the bread and butter of the business was the PST. Mm-hmm. And between, mobile and collaborative platforms like Slack and Teams and COVID and video, that's just no longer the day. And so, I think that is going to be a significant driver continuing for the coming years, the ability to support, hundreds more file types than we did before. And so we had to go to a microservices infrastructure, which we're really excited about it, but it gives us the ability as these things kind of pop up, we're able to deploy them without needing to refactor our entire architecture. And then, the other movement was around generative AI and ChatGPT. And I think, and it's hard to believe that was almost 3 years ago already.
Is that right?
Yeah. And, with that moment and that app becoming the quickest app to 5 million users ever, it became apparent to us that we were entering a new technology super cycle, that this was a change in the technology landscape on par with mobile, on par with cloud, on par with the internet. And so I think, that's kind of what we've been talking about here.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing we were talking about is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is, a lot of these data sets that we're dealing with now, they're not the static data sets we were talking about, like, just processing the PSTs or grabbing, the Word documents from a file server. We've got SaaS products like you were talking about Slack or Zendesk we're pulling from. We've got phones. Cloud is changing all the time. And so that's been one really cool thing that I was noticing last year is that people are bringing in the right tool sets, the right kind of ways to manage the business because we need to be so much more flexible, right? iOS could make an update every year. WhatsApp could make a different change. Slack could make any changes they want. And as consultants and leaders in the space, we need to be able to react to those data types and changes almost on a hair trigger, because our clients demand that. The clients, those that are defending and prosecuting cases, defend on that. So it's a really cool time, I think, to be in eDiscovery. I think this is kind of a really good kind of growth period for us.
Absolutely. I mean, I've pretty much every day I'm faced with the moment where I'm like, this is just going to get bigger and more complicated. Yeah, this is just going to become a bigger part of the legal industry, and it's going to go. When I started out, it was sort of a arcane corner of the universe and nobody cared about legal tech, and it's like it's completely flipped on its ear now. Like I think we are moving to the center of how legal processes are going to get done.
Absolutely. And like you had said, right, like the data volume is just exponentially growing, right? And so that's really forcing us to drive cloud adoption in our tooling, right? It's also a process adoption that we kind of need to change, right? Like, this better than most. Back in the day, we'd have 20 custodians. We'd go grab 20 email boxes and we'd sort from there, right? And this data is now such a exponential growth factor that we need to have better ways to assess that data, kind of index and search against that data, how we're interacting with it. And so, I've been seeing a huge shift, definitely on the cloud side. Obviously, AI has been a top talking point for everyone, but it's been great for me because, when I was working at a law firm, right, there was so much cloud kind of resistance, right? It was the new thing. We didn't know if it could be protected. You'd hear about people's iClouds getting hacked or something like that. And so there's all this kind of uncertainty around it. And now, it's been awesome for me to see both on the corporate side and for, some of our law firm clients that cloud adoption is huge. Obviously, that's where a lot of the softwares and systems are migrating here for us, as well as the AI side. So, are you guys integrating AI into your guys' tech stack? What is that looking like for you guys?
Absolutely. And, as a very early adopter of the cloud, we were beta testers on S3 at Nextpoint. Yeah, we've been intimately involved with that evolution. And I think you were kind of giving me PTSD there for a second in terms of all the objections that I got for the first, 10 years, I'd say 5 to 10 years when we were trying to, get traction for the software, where people were like, what do you mean I'm not going to install this? What does Amazon have to do with this? There's no books involved in this. Like, what are you guys doing? And so, yeah, in terms of AI, we brought on Dr. David Lewis, who is our chief scientific and product officer, who's got, decades of experience in legal tech and dealing with artificial intelligence. We're about to release our first major generative AI feature, which is some deposition summaries. And so we've used various forms of AI machine learning and a lot of different components: near duplicate detection, language translation, handwriting identification, PII detection. I mean, so it's not like it's a brand new effort. Like, in some ways, Boolean is a version of AI, but it's clearly going to be it's going to be a different beast from here on out. And I think, for all software providers, the need to have generative AI based tools in addition to traditional machine learning tools is like it's minimum ante now. This is like, it's not it's not some exotic upgrade. It's not some thing that it's like, well, we're not really sure if it's going to work, or, if anyone's going to buy this. It's increasingly considered sort of table stakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, are you guys, from your guys' perspective, because you guys have this technology in place, because, we can do more with less and, use cloud to scale and things like that. Are you guys hearing from your kind of the legal teams that you guys are supporting? Like, how is that changing what they are demanding from you guys now? Like, is there expectation that you guys are doing things faster, hitting deadlines faster, getting through data faster? Like, what does that kind of look like from your guys' client base?
Absolutely. I mean, all vectors of performance are, increasingly under examination. So, people are expecting more data to be available faster and then easier to look at format at a lower cost. It's like it's happening, but that's technology. I mean, that's what, that's technology, and that's what the cloud does. And, I'll classify it in two ways. I think we have lots of, we have tons of clients who have like complex needs and have been using us for years on large, eDiscovery and trial preparation projects, right? And what's changed for them is that just the volume is so much greater, and the level of complexity of the number of file types that they're needing to get command over has expanded. We're also seeing kind of a whole new generation, I'd say, of smaller and mid-sized firms who historically, this was not part and parcel of what they needed to do on a day-to-day basis, and now it is. Mm-hmm. And so we're getting a lot of folks who this is kind of their first time through a little bit. We're in the late adoption phase.
Sure.
Before I think we get to kind of 100% penetration here, where just everyone knows that just like they have a time and billing system and and an accounting system and mobile devices, they're going to need a system of record to manage their clients' evidence.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. And I liked what you said earlier. This is just kind of the path of technology, right? Where we have to be improving things. We've got to be, automating things and bringing those things to our clients. And so that's really cool. I don't know how often you guys are interacting on the corporate buyer side, but like one thing I've noticed, and I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, is I always make the joke that it took my dad 10 years to know what eDiscovery was or what I did as a job, right? It was just kind of like, I don't know what he does. He works for lawyers and that's what happens. But it feels like eDiscovery is such a ubiquitous idea and concept in the legal industry now, right? And there's like such a convergence on the corporate side for, legal ops, IT's involved, InfoSec, sometimes the CFO, the CISOs, the CIOs are involved, right? And what I've been kind of noticing is like just like you're saying, right? We need to have the requirements to scale across those departments. We're trying to make sure that we're adhering to the right security and privacy standards that are constantly evolving. And while, simultaneously, like you were talking about, cutting down on time, interacting with this data faster, delivering the same defensibility standards that we've been working through our clients. Curious if you guys are kind of seeing the same thing from some of your corporate buyers.
Yeah, I mean, historically, the corporate buyers came in very focused on as I think most of the industry did, right? It was this notion that like eDiscovery was sort of an adjunct, like it was sort of an adjacent process to actually, providing legal advice. Like it wasn't kind of at the center of it, right? And so the collections, processing, analysis, production, review phases were where everybody spent their time, right? And then once it left that part, then it kind of went to a different part, like it went to a different organization or different, expertise to handle the rest of it. And I think, what we're seeing is both on the identification side, that those needs are much more complex, and that corporate buyers in particular are looking, and legal ops recognizes that they're now under, regulatory requirements in order to either both collect the data and destroy it. Right. Sure. And also to remediate it if an employee leaves. And same on the sort of post-production side. Look, our first AI feature has to do with deposition transcripts. Mm-hmm. That's where we think it. And so that's going to there's a lot of lawyers who don't consider themselves eDiscovery lawyers who are all of a sudden going to be needing to use a lot of AI. Okay. And so that's kind of where, that's, I think, the kind of direction that we're headed towards. I think the other interesting thing for corporate, in the corporate context, is that there's increasing discussion about making modifications to Rule 34 regarding production of data, where people who are receiving data are now going to have to attest to what they're doing to secure it. It's always been this amazing thing to me that corporations would produce these large volumes of data that were subject to protective orders and confidentiality orders. And then like on the other side, there was like somebody who got a hard drive and put it on a laptop.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, what was that guy? Oh, it was Alex Jones. If you remember they had all that stuff. They dumped his whole phone to a hard drive and then accidentally produced it all. Right. Yep. And so it's like, yeah, I got to be watching out for those kind of those risky areas for sure.
Yeah, and I haven't dug into the last Epstein files dump, but presumably there were a lot of improperly redacted PDFs where it's like, the old copy and paste trick.
Sure. I remember seeing that on TikTok, and I was like, man, is this 2006? Because I've been through this before. It's just, I can't believe they're still applying redactions that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. Last thing, just on the corporate side, again, this being a multifaceted issue, right? You had brought up it's not even just the legal hold and preservation part of it, but it is the data remediation, right, of that data and the information governance of it, right? And so, that's why I'm definitely seeing more of the actual business stakeholders involved in these discussions now, because I have clients that have literally tens of thousands of phones in warehouses because they don't know how to get it off fast enough. They weren't bringing in the right technology to scale and get that data collected in the appropriate way. And they're carrying, a couple tens of millions of dollars on their balance sheet of devices they can't remediate here. So just interesting how eDiscovery is so specific, but has so many more different financial and monetary ramifications across different business units. It's kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, it's, the legal business is just a reflection of broader changes in society.
Sure.
And we just have gone to it's just turned into a digital society,
Mm-hmm.
Like when I started the business, the iPhone wasn't released yet.
Oh, sure.
And then, and the companies that are, the largest companies in the world now, in a lot of instances, weren't public 20 years ago. They were startups.
Sure.
But now they're literally the most important companies in the world. So, that this digital transformation of our society, hastened by COVID, obviously, is we're not coming back from it. So it's going to be reflected. It's going to be reflected by the civil justice system and the criminal justice system.
I like how you put that. I like that a lot. Well, just to kind of wrap things up, without saying AI, if you had to do kind of what your 12-month kind of purview looks like, what do you think we got ahead of us here this year in the industry?
AI. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be, I'll talk from a larger business context. I think it was a very challenging year for legal from everyone I've talked to. I think there was a great deal of uncertainty about the economy and obviously the political context, tariffs and, macro headwinds
pressures and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and we're in kind of a difficult moment here where the legal industry is kind of front and center, around a lot of the moves by the administration to sort of impose their will, as we can see from the largest law firms in the world, in our country, who have, have been forced to cut deals. And that has had a chilling effect on the overall industry. How could it not? It's just forget about the politics of it. This is just the business of it.
Totally.
I think, lots of folks in corporate boardrooms have increasingly are more hesitant to pick up the phone and call their law firm than they probably were before if they're coming into an issue with the administration. I think it's clear that the administration's enforcement resources have largely been reallocated towards immigration and away from antitrust, white collar, all the other stuff that used to be, consumer protection, disability rights, all the other stuff that people were getting, were in front of investigative agencies for. And so, I don't see that is going to change substantially, but I think we're just adjusting to the new normal of how this is going to work.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. I think for me, I kind of talked about it earlier, but from just a technology lens, right, more adoption to API kind of driven ecosystems, right? Making sure that people are bringing on the right
point
cloud platforms. And, AI is a big component of this, but like we've been kind of having a theme of this is being able to do more with less, right? Get through more data faster with better insights and stuff like that. So I'm very excited for Legal Week coming up. I'm excited to see what new products people have coming out. I think it'll be a strong year for us coming off of last year.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. And that integration point is a fascinating one. There's going to be, with all these cloud, people are going to expect more and more for their various cloud data sources to be able to communicate with each other. And so I totally agree with you. I think that API integration, question is going to be, front and center.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. I appreciate you guys' partnership. Love working with you guys and excited to see you See you
Yeah, right on.
this year.
Good stuff, man. I'll see you in New York.
All right, cheers.
All right, bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In Discovery Mode. Follow us on LinkedIn for updates on new episodes or visit us online at www.modeone.io.